Tonight on the Daily Wrap, the Benghazi committee hearings are now fully underway, but does the White House narrative match what really happened 4 years ago? Plus, has Paul Ryan secured his position as the next Speaker of the House? And is President Obama coming after your guns? This is the Daily Wrap, and we are live from New York City. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Rick Unger. Joe Concha has the night off, but don't worry, we got a great panel lined up for you tonight. To my right, he's a former Navy SEAL and the president of the Citizen League. Carl Higbie is back with us. To his right, he's the assistant online editor for Commentary Magazine. Noah Rothman is in the house. And finally, he's the senior partner and owner of the law offices of Adam M. Thompson and a syndicated talk show host to boot. Adam Thompson is here. All right, everybody, let's get right to the Daily Download.
These protests were in reaction to a video that had spread to the region.
At Benghazi? What happened?
We certainly don't know. We don't know otherwise. We have no information to suggest that it was a pre-planned attack. The unrest we've seen around the region has been in reaction to a video that many Muslims find offensive.
That was one-time White House spokesperson Jay Carney in the days following the attack on the United States consulate in Benghazi, suggesting that the deadly attack was the result of a film created by an American filmmaker that was offensive to Muslims. As we all know too well, that attack resulted in the deaths of 4 Americans, including our ambassador, Chris Stevens. Today, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified before the Select Benghazi Committee and faced with some tough questions by Republican Congressman Jim Jordan, who provided some previously undisclosed facts about what the administration knew and when they knew it.
You're looking at an email you sent to your family. Here's what you said. At 11 o'clock that night, approximately 1 hour after you told the American people it was a video, you say to your family, 2 officers were killed today in Benghazi by an Al-Qaeda-like group. You tell the American people one thing, you tell your family an entirely different story. You had a call with the president of Libya. Here's what you said to him. Ansar al-Sharia is claiming responsibility. It's interesting, Mr. Katala, one of the guys arrested and charged, actually belonged to that group. The next day, within 24 hours, you had a conversation with the Egyptian Prime Minister. You told him this: we know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest. State Department experts knew the truth. You knew the truth, but that's not what the American people got. And again, the American people want to know why.
Well, Congressman, there was a lot of conflicting information that we were trying to make sense of. The situation was very fluid. It was fast-moving.
Well, let's start with former Navy SEAL Carl Higbie. Carl, there's no doubt that information was coming in fast and furious as that all was unfolding. But even I have to say that was the one place where the secretary got dinged. She did not respond to his question in the appropriate way. What do you have to say about this?
I don't think she responded to any of their questions all night or all day long.
Well, we'll disagree on that, but let's stick to this for
Well,
a moment.
I think the big issue here is that she's telling the country one thing and she's telling Chelsea another thing. I mean, this is true politics right now, and what this does is this just delineates less trust for her going down the road for the election, because I can guarantee you that soundbite will be played over and over and over again in the upcoming weeks of this election.
No, if she didn't tell the truth, and that's obviously very damning, what we saw take place there. What do you think it was about? Was it about protecting the administration as they headed into an election and not wanting to acknowledge that we suffered a terrorist attack?
Yes.
Or
no, there really is no other legitimate explanation for this. And it had the exact intended effect.
Well, see, I think there was another explanation, but go ahead.
Well, okay, I will suggest that it didn't. It had its intended effect. It created enough confusion so that it muddied the waters for enough weeks where they managed to get into the election, having preserved the narrative that Al-Qaeda was on the run in this administration. administration and kept the public safe. The great black mark on this country's history that occurred in that period was the incarceration of this man who had nothing to do with an attack and who was exercising his right to free speech and went to jail for it.
It was largely forgotten about in this entire
Yes, he
instance.
was.
And
So,
that's
Adam,
something that
I
shouldn't be
mean,
forgotten.
I'm certainly not going to discount or necessarily dispute what Noah just said, because that's certainly a believable scenario. However, is it fair to point out that it was entirely possible that, knowing that the CIA director was really managing, we've seen the email chain, he was managing all that took place following the Benghazi attack in terms of the PR effort. Is it not also as reasonable to wonder if this was not an effort to protect the covert operation that was going on in Benghazi?
I mean, anything's possible, but I have to agree with Noah. I mean, it's pretty clear to me she was protecting the administration, but also she's thinking down the line, she's protecting herself. She knew as Secretary of State there'd be fallout from an event like this. She's the person at the wheel controlling the ship about what's going to happen and what's going to, what questions will be asked, and they would be pointing at her. So she had to do some kind of protection for herself in the administration. I think when you said she got hurt today, she got damaged very badly, and they are going to play that clip over and over because she didn't give answers, and people want answers.
Well, I actually don't agree that she didn't give answers. I think by and large she did much better than I expected, but that was absolutely the one point where I looked at it and said, people aren't going to like that. In any event, there were further fireworks when Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff suggested that the committee was engaged in a prosecution of Secretary Clinton rather than an investigation, a charge that got the attention of a number of people watching. Let's see if we can watch that.
This is not a prosecution, Mr. Schiff. You and I are both familiar with them. I've reached no conclusions, and I would advise you to not reach any conclusions either until we reach the end. There are 20 more witnesses. So I'll agree not to reach any conclusions if you'll do the same.
The one thing that was said in this hearing that is clearly the farthest from the truth is that this is not a prosecution. If you listen to the other side, this is unquestionably exactly that, a prosecution. I mean, I'd ask viewers to just go back and listen to Chairman Gowdy's questioning of you before the first break.
Adam, you're an attorney, as am I. Was there any question in your mind that this was more prosecution than investigation?
It certainly is. I mean, anyone that doesn't think there's any partisan, impact behind this, the Republicans want to take her out as a candidate. They want to see the poll numbers drop. This is an ideal opportunity to put her under the fire, under the flames, make her look bad. If she dodges the questions, which many on the panel already said she has, and it really made her look bad, it's going to back the haunt her.
But isn't that disturbing? And by the way, I'm not suggesting that only Republicans do this. Democrats do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to criticize Congress. I actually want to know what happened in Benghazi, and I want to know so that maybe we can take steps so that doesn't happen to our people again. But that's not what this hearing was about today. This hearing was about get Hillary Clinton. I spoke with Mike Brown today of Brownie fame from New Orleans, and Mike was talking about how the same thing happened to him. It wasn't about learning the mistakes of New Orleans. It was about embarrassing the Bush administration. He was right. This is not okay, is it, Noah?
Well, I honestly think that we're undervaluing the amount of information that we learned today and have learned over the course of these serious investigations into this event, and we are actually making progress into finding out what happened and how to prevent it. So it's a little unfair to say that because you've reached a partisan conclusion yourself, or other people have reached a partisan conclusion, that this exercise is entirely partisan. Yes, Congress is a political body. The sky is blue. It's always going to be political in some fame and some nature, but what we've discovered in this hearing alone, and today alone, have put a lot of new light on some events.
It wasn't always that way. I'll take you back. I know you guys weren't at the Watergate hearings. I'm an old guy. It wasn't like that. All the questioning was done by counsel for both sides, so there couldn't be showboating. Carl, you got something to add.
Well, the issue here is that she was asked a number of yes or no questions with the chance to elaborate after saying yes or no, and she did not answer yes or no on a single one of them.
So what? She answered the question.
No, she didn't answer the question at all.
No, excuse me. Most questions can't be answered effectively. I think you'll agree.
Well, the question is,
it's not a prosecution.
It's not a prosecution.
A yes or no
if you're
question by its
behaving like
nature.
you're under, you're
It's
the defense.
cross-examining.
And in the short time we have left, just a quick answer. What was this whole thing about Blumenthal? Quick, you got 2 seconds.
I think it was just entirely blown up to show that how she gave access to someone and not someone else.
She misled the president. She erased information she sent to the
Did that
president.
tell us anything about Benghazi? No. We want to know what you thought about today's Benghazi hearing. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments so you can let your voice be heard. Coming up, has Paul Ryan already secured the Speaker of the House position? We'll tell you in a moment.
We need to move from an opposition party to being a proposition party. We need to update our House rules so that everyone can be a more effective representative. We as a conference should unify now and not after a divisive Speaker election. I cannot and I will not give up my family time. I may not be on the road as often as previous speakers, but I pledge to try and make up for it with more time communicating our vision, our message. What I told members is, if you can agree to these requests, and if I can truly be a unifying figure, then I will gladly serve.
And welcome back to the show. That was Congressman Paul Ryan laying out the preconditions to his agreeing to run for Speaker of the House. But could it be that Ryan's demands are not quite as hard and fast as he suggests? In a meeting last night with the Freedom Caucus wing of the House GOP, Ryan failed to achieve the required 80% of the caucus's votes that he needed for an endorsement of his candidacy. And yet, Mr. Ryan did achieve enough support from the most conservative wing of his party to ensure that he appears to have sufficient support to be elected Speaker of the House. Apparently, that was good enough for Congressman Ryan. After all, who tweeted the following after the meeting. Oh, I'm going to read that to you. Sorry. I'm grateful for the support of a supermajority of the House Freedom Caucus. I look forward to hearing from the other two caucuses by the end of the week, but I believe this is a positive step toward a unified Republican team. And yet some of the key members of the Freedom Caucus sent a few of their own tweets disparaging Ryan's candidacy. While Ryan was looking for an endorsement from all three caucuses, including the Freedom Caucus, it certainly appears he is willing to accept a supermajority rather than an outright endorsement. That leads me to ask whether, despite his protestations to the contrary, Congressman Ryan just might want this job a little bit more than he's been letting on. What do you think, Carl?
I think so, but he still got 70% of the vote from the Freedom Caucus, so we have to examine the fact that if he's going to have 70% of them backing up, they believe that he's going to uphold his oath to them, which is he's promising to be a little bit more conservative than Boehner was. The other thing, too, if this doesn't work out and if he chooses not to run, who's lurking behind? I know that first-time Congressman Ryan Zinke, he's been considering it. He's been spending some time talking.
But that's not going to happen. We all know that.
It probably not, but he is there to back it up. I mean, the guy was a SEAL for over 20 years.
Still not going to happen. He's a first-term congressman.
Yeah, but he could make a run for it if Ryan doesn't.
I can make a run for it.
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't even have to be elected.
Yeah.
So.
You know, I don't know whether or not he's not going to get the endorsement of everybody at the end of the day. He got the Tuesday group and he got the Republican Study Committee today. He also had the support, surprisingly, of a famously libertarian, contrarian Representative Justin Amash, who never voted for John Boehner, and either of the two times he had the opportunity to do so.
And he is the leader of that caucus.
Yeah, so I'm under the impression that a few people are going to fall in line. It's a lot easier to oppose somebody behind closed doors than it is in a roll call vote. I'm not sure whether or not he doesn't get those votes just before before he actually
the reality
for
is, even without the 10 or 11 who did not vote for him in the caucus meeting, he's got enough votes today, it would appear, to be Speaker of the House.
He clearly has the votes. It's up to him whether he wants to do it or not. I've never seen, to me, it's unprecedented. I've never seen someone put so many demands on a group in a position of what he's going to do that I remember.
Him at his word. I don't think he's all that anxious to take this job. I think he wants to be president of the United States someday, and this is a surefire way to derail that opportunity. So
you just take the bad end of a lot of decisions that come out. When things go good, everybody wants to take credit. When things don't go good, they blame the speaker who's in charge. So this is a no-win situation for him, but ultimately, it's going to be him.
But when Trump wins for president, though, this could be a real big thing for him for the conservative side of America.
Yeah, we'll move on. If Congressman Ryan is willing to become the Speaker of the House without the actual endorsement of the Freedom Caucus, and knowing how resentful many of the caucus members are with respect to Ryan's demand for a rule change that would prevent him from being deposed during a sitting Congress, did Ryan really mean what he said when stating his conditions, Noah?
Maybe not. I'm not entirely
maybe
sure that
not.
this. I don't know if this rule wasn't just something to put on the table so that you could sweeten the pot when you take it out and get everybody to feel like they got something out of it.
Though.
Yeah, I think
So
he
you
might
think
end
it
up
was
withdrawing
a
it.
negotiation tool?
Well,
in a sense?
Posturing,
Possibly.
pure posturing. That's all it was.
Possibly, but let's not pretend like this hasn't been really weaponized over the course of this Congress. That was hanging over John Boehner's head over the course of his entire term, and it might have actually been used effectively, even though it hasn't been used in 100 years. It was on the table. It was going to come out. So we don't know whether it would have been effective, but it's definitely something that conservative members can use to derail leadership.
But when you walk into a courtroom, the first thing you do is make hard, stiff demands and say, "This is what we want in this case," and you let the next lawyer back it up.
You can always pull back, but you can't put it back out.
But here's what's so interesting. I buy what all three of you have just said. But that would, again, lead you to the conclusion that he really wants the job and that he was putting forward some tough demands so he could back off to get the job.
To show that he can come.
Maybe I'm being naive here, but I'm disappointed because I actually believe Paul Ryan when he says the things that he says. I don't know.
Come on, really? You
All right,
believe
so
that?
let me take you somewhere. He is still a politician. Yeah. Why should anybody believe if Paul Ryan becomes Speaker of the House that things will be any different in the House than it was under John Boehner?
You know, I honestly can't answer that question. I hope to see.
Well, then let me ask Noah. Since you can't answer, maybe he can.
I'm worthless. Sorry.
Well, I think he's got a little bit more legitimacy than John Boehner has now. He's got the endorsement of everybody. He's going to probably have just about everybody's votes, maybe a couple of stragglers, and he's going to be a very legitimate House member or House leadership. So, I think that'll be a little bit.
Why is he more legitimate than Boehner?
Because John Boehner was constantly facing leadership challenges. He had Representative Meadows, who was going to submit a leadership challenge.
Who says that Ryan won't?
Well, because he's got all their endorsements.
It doesn't mean that they can't still do it. See, that's what I find fascinating about this. They're not signing a document.
If they want committee assignments, they'll
that's one way they do it. All right. Do you think that Paul Ryan will make a more effective Speaker of the House than John Boehner? Let us know by going to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Coming up next, Donald Trump says the president wants to take your guns away. You're going to want to stay for that.
So, big Second Amendment. We're all heavy on the Second Amendment. You know, the president's thinking about signing an executive order where he wants to take your guns away. You hear it this way. This is the new. Not going to happen. That won't happen. But that's a tough one. I think that's a tough one for him to do. When you actually have the Second Amendment, that's tough. Because there's plenty of executive orders being signed. You know that. And we can't let that go on. So it'll all stop. It'll all stop. It'll stop very soon, I think, because people are tired of what's going on and they're tired of what's happening to our country.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. That, of course, was Donald Trump speaking yesterday at a rally in South Carolina and charging that the president is considering signing an executive order that would take away Americans' guns. Given that such suggestions tend to cause a rise in gun sales, does Trump possibly own stock in a few gun manufacturers, or is there really an executive order under consideration, one of which I'm unaware, that would overturn the Second Amendment and take away Americans' rights to have guns? I think I know just the right person to go to with this. Carl Higbie, are you aware of a proposed executive order that would take away our guns?
I'm not aware of a proposed one, but the president did say after the shooting that he was going to consider the legalities of one. Now, we all know that...
No, that's not what he said.
He did say that.
And as you just said, no, he didn't. He said he is going to consider more executive orders that would deal with the problem. Never, and as you know, I chronicle this well, never have I heard President Obama say, I am considering an executive order that will take away all your guns.
Okay.
Well, then let's be clear.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But, I mean, this is exactly why I founded the Citizen League, is to address this topic. Is the fact is, the left is going to have to recognize the Second Amendment does grant us, as decided in the D.C. gun decision,
I agree.
it is an individual right to own firearms.
But that's not what we're discussing. We're discussing why Donald Trump made that statement, and I'm going to make you stick to that.
That is where this is going to go. This is going to go towards what guns you can and can't own.
Not what he said. I'm sorry,
it doesn't matter what he said.
Yes, it does matter. That's what we're talking about.
But look at how he's acted.
Did he tell the truth?
When?
Last night, when he said that the president is considering an executive order to take away your guns.
He may have a ton of
information.
information.
That's a yes or no. You were just telling me how easy that's to do for Hillary Clinton. You don't know.
I don't know.
Has he presented any evidence that he does know?
No, but he may know more than I do.
Noah.
No. I don't believe that Donald Trump has a secret line into the White House, nor do I think that the President of the United States can simply annul the Second Amendment to the Constitution just by virtue of an executive order.
Infringe like he did on the immigration argument either. He did that.
Well, and in Trump's defense, he made that same point. But my problem with the statement, Trump did say, I don't think he can do that either with the Second Amendment.
Democrats love to have this both ways.
Why is he going out there and saying this?
Yeah.
Why is he saying the
I'll tell you
president's
why.
considering?
All right, Carl, when you were asked by him what was the statement by the president, he said, I'm going to do an executive order about this stuff. Is that specific? Did he say, I'm going to end guns? No. But when you leave open a loophole like about this stuff,
Then
let's
you
get
can-
real.
wait.
What's about this stuff
Then
mean?
you can. Well,
What's it mean, Rick?
Excuse me.
It's an opening that he can seize
No need to
and
filibuster.
say.
I'll answer your question. The words about stuff are my words, not the president's. But if you're going to make a specific allegation that the president is going to do this, he's going to sign an executive order taking away your guns. You don't get to interpret what he said as that. When you're saying, now, the way I interpret that, I'm afraid the president's going to sign an executive order. That's okay, but that's not what he did. He said it was happening.
You know what, Rick? I think Americans have a real right to be paranoid about what Democrats want to do with guns because the press never holds them. The press never holds Democrats accountable for what they say. One second, let me finish my thought. Hillary Clinton is on stage a couple of weeks ago, and she's asked whether or not she approves of Australia's gun measures, which were expressly confiscatory. Right. She says we should look into that. Who in the press has noted the fact that she's essentially said, as president, I'm going to seek to review the Second Amendment?
I have.
Well, you are a real lovely exception, sir, because I haven't seen anything in the
I agree
mainstream
with you,
press.
and it should be discussed, and you're absolutely right.
And that's what fuels this kind of
But
paranoia.
that doesn't give, that can fuel the paranoia. It doesn't give a presidential candidate the right to pretend that the president is considering something which you acknowledge.
He can say anything he wants. I mean, he's leading in the polls. He's going to be the next president,
that's
Rick.
the problem, though.
Yeah,
he can say whatever he wants.
He's clearly playing to the crowd, but the point is, he can say, if there's an opening that there's potential for an executive order, what's it going to do? It's going to restrict in some way either how you apply a background check, which in an open-ended way will restrict gun ownership.
You're leaving the point. He didn't go anywhere like that, but let's move on because I think the point's made. You would think that Trump's bombastic style and his unrealistic promises, like the one last night, would have Republicans suspicious of him, and yet he continues to lead heavily in all the polls except Iowa.
Because the perception is that Obama does want to ban guns. The perception is that he does want to ban guns.
It's
Trump
been
ignited
7 years, brother. Yeah, but he's only got like a year left, and he hasn't done it.
He's actually sold more guns than any other president throughout history.
So why this perception that he wants to ban guns?
Because constantly his negative remarks on guns. Look at Chicago.
Yeah. It doesn't tell us anything except that he doesn't like guns.
Except history.
He's done nothing to do anything to take them away.
He's tried.
No, he hasn't. Where has he sent anybody to anybody's house? I'm out of time. I could talk about this for hours. But what do you make of Donald Trump's accusations that President Obama wants to take away your guns? Let us know at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Coming up, Ben Carson is first in Iowa now ahead of Donald Trump. What's up?
Well, I'm a deal maker. I'll make great deals for this country. Ben can't do that. Ben's a doctor, and he's not a deal maker. And I'll make great deals for our country, which is very important. And I see it yesterday in Iowa. The place was going wild. We had record crowds. And they want competence. They want deal making. Ben is not a deal maker at all, and I don't think would be a very good. I don't think that's his natural ability at all.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. According to the latest Quinnipiac poll, it appears that Republican voters in Iowa do not quite agree with Mr. Trump when it comes to Dr. Ben Carson's desirability as a presidential candidate. According to the poll, retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson leads the Republican field with 28%, while Trump has fallen behind with just 20%. Back in September, that same poll had Donald Trump in the lead with 27% and Ben Carson in second place with 21%. So given that this is the first time we've seen Trump overcome in any poll that I can think of, what has gone right for Carson in Iowa, or what has gone wrong for Donald Trump in Iowa? Noah, I think you might have the answer.
I have a theory here. Donald Trump's polling has been remarkably consistent across the fall nationally, but he's fallen here and not anywhere else, and I think for only one reason alone, and that's because negative ads are on the air. The Club for Growth has been filing a $1 million ad buy since September. This is the first poll in the field over the course of that period. It's a real good pollster. I think it's registering a dip because they are hammering Donald Trump on being a Democrat all of an hour and a half ago, constantly hammering him on not having conservative positions. And I don't think Ben Carson is moving up so much as Donald Trump is moving down, and he's their next choice.
Adam, Noah makes a great point, and I have to believe he's got it right. This is the first place we are seeing negative advertising on the air attacking Trump. It hasn't happened before. Right. And the result, he's down substantially in the poll there. Does this mean that Trump may be far more susceptible to negative advertising around the country than we've been considering?
Every candidate is susceptible to negative ads, but there's always that initial period. The ads come out. You take a real big drop in the poll sometimes, but then people get used to seeing those ads and the effect wears off. And there'll also be positive ads that Trump can counter with that he'll start running to say that those either aren't true or whatever.
I'll get to you in a second, but Noah, you have a response to that.
Well, that's the question now, isn't it? Does Donald Trump engage in a traditional campaign? Does he spend? Does he ad buy? Does he burn cash in Iowa? Does he get into a real fist fight here? Because as of now, he's been running on free media, and he hasn't had the opportunity, he hasn't had the ability to spend in these places, the interest in spending in these places.
Before I let you answer, because we have breaking news I want to share, the Associated Press is now reporting that Paul Ryan will in fact become the next Speaker of the House. So there you have it. Now back to this.
So what we need to look at here, and what all the other candidates need to look at, the percentage that Trump has lost, Carson gained. This sends a clear message that Iowa does not want another political insider. That is something that's being overlooked greatly, I think. It doesn't matter, Carson, Trump, whatever.
At this stage,
at this time,
I think that's true. But that's pretty much the story everywhere for the Republicans.
But look at, a lot of people say, well, Cruz is my second choice or whatever. Instead of going to Cruz or something like that, the exact percentage that Donald Trump lost went exactly to Carson.
Actually, I'm going to make a correction. They just told me what the AP reported was that Paul Ryan has now officially declared his candidacy, which, by the way, means that he has become the next Speaker of the House.
This just in, Carl Higbee reports that he will be the next
Speaker. Yeah. You're really taking a chance there, man, stepping out on that one.
He's not getting the majority of the majority.
No. I think my friend Ryan Zinke may have.
All right, so here's the question I want to ask about this next. We do see that Trump is vulnerable.
Right.
He's vulnerable to negative advertising. Are we beginning to see what the silver bullet is for the establishment? We've been hearing all week that the establishment is out to get Donald Trump. Oh, yeah. Is this the silver bullet that's going to get it done? No.
Well, I want to know whether or not this affects his campaign in the form of the sense that he's the winner, right? All he does is win. He delivers wins. So many wins, you're going to get tired of winning. He's losing. Does that affect his image with his supporters? Does his image as an unassailable winner who just endlessly wins stop now and take the bloom off the rose? Right.
What is the rattling effect is that this shows voters that he may not have what it takes to win.
I want to add something to the conversation. We're on the subject of Dr. Carson. He has once again introduced a somewhat unusual suggestion into the dialogue, and he did so during this discussion with Glenn Beck.
Shut down the Department of Education.
I actually have something I would use the Department of Education to do.
Would it be pack boxes for the State Department? The IRS?
No, it would be to monitor our institutions of higher education for extreme political bias and deny federal funding if it exists.
So quickly, Carson would use the Department of Education to monitor and determine if there is extreme political bias in classes on the nation's campuses. I know that many people believe that professors tend to lean way to the right. But let me just ask left.
Whoa.
But let me just ask the question this way. What?
Very
quickly.
Very scary.
Quickly.
No
Madness.
censorship.
You don't police free speech.
Quickly.
No, can't do it.
Okay, we all agree on that. We want to know what you think about Ben Carson leading Iowa, as well as his plans for the Department of Education to police colleges for political bias, should he win the White House. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know. Coming up, viewer comments.
Benghazi is a big problem for Hillary Clinton, not so much because of the fact that it happened, although there were requests for security. It's how the government responded afterwards. And this hearing, I think, is important to get a sense of, could those 4 Americans been saved? Was there an effort, a serious effort to to help. And then afterwards, when they tried to create the fog of war and call it, a response to a stupid, video, was that appropriate? I think, look, this was in the midst of a campaign, and I think the Obama administration was trying to avoid a controversy that would hurt their reelection chances. And I think the 4 Americans that lost their lives are deserving of a fair hearing on this.
And welcome back to The Wrap. To catch more of J.D. Hayworth's interview with former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, tune in to Newsmax Prime tonight at 8 p.m. all next week. Also, you'll get to see it. Welcome back to the Daily Wrap once again. All right, let's read some of your viewer comments. First up, we have a comment about today's Benghazi committee hearing. Will says, while watching the Benghazi hearing, I was shocked at how smug Hillary Clinton was. She looked like an entitled brat. I will vote for anyone but Hillary in 2016. But how do you really feel, Will? John says, the fact that Clinton and the White House blamed the Benghazi attack on a video when Hillary knew the attack was planned that night should be reason enough for Hillary to leave the race for the White House. She cannot be trusted. Does this come as a surprise to anybody that there are a great many folks out there who, no matter...
Especially our viewers.
Yeah, I mean, whatever Hillary did today, for better or for worse, it wasn't going to change their opinion. True?
Not at all.
There were plenty of moments, though, where she was being theatrically dismissive, putting her head on her hands and looking really bored. And that was intentionally projecting that was what they picked up on.
And
can
you
took
the upper hand, too. She was very arrogant towards some of the questions.
Can you envision that any Hillary supporters were turned away by today?
No.
No, neither can I. All right, regarding the future Speaker of the House, the one the AP just confirmed is officially running, which means that he's officially got it. Taylor says, may I suggest former governor and now House Representative of South Carolina, Mark Sanford, because he's famous for being honest, as the replacement for John Boehner. Representative Sanford is a member of the Freedom Caucus. He was, from most accounts, an excellent governor of a southern red state, and before his Argentinian Appalachian hitchhike, he was a heavy favorite by many to be a contender for the 2012 presidential election on the Republican side. Who knows? Had he not had marital fidelity issues, he may have gone all the way. I don't know, maybe. He did go all the way to Argentina. Jim says, I think Newt Gingrich would make a better speaker, better communicator, experience, and wisdom. Well, they may all be right, guys, but sounds to me like the ship has sailed, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's been
the best thing. One of the best things that happened to the GOP was Sanford's escapade, because it resulted in Governor Nikki Haley and Senator Tim Scott. And I think we're better off for both of them than we are with Mr. Sanford.
All right, regarding Muslim refugees, James says, Rick Unger says all Muslims are not terrorists, more or less, needs to read the Quran. The Quran demands all Muslims are in eternal jihad. It commands all Muslims, men, women, and children to subjugate, convert, and kill all infidels. The young man, Zach, is dead on with his perception of Islam. All Muslims want all Christians dead. And my Bible, by the way, tells me that I have to stone to death anybody who commits adultery. So are we really going to go by that? And finally, we have some general comments. Bob says, I really enjoyed the Daily Wrap. However, my wife is so irritated and frustrated by Rick Unger, she may not allow him on our TV. Your wife has a great deal in common with my wife. And Grace says, I love Rick Unger. Just when I think I know a position he'll take on an issue, he surprises me and goes the opposite direction. Well, what can I say about any of that? If you want to weigh in on any of the issues we discuss here on the show, be sure to send us your comments. And coming up next, you know what time it is, yay or nay, right after the break. More than 80 million Americans make up the baby boom generation, and astoundingly, most of them have done little to plan for their retirement. Now, a new book, The Baby Boomer Survival Guide, has been released to help boomers and others prepare for retirement. This guide is filled with money-saving tips and valuable advice to grow and protect your wealth and your health, like how to bump up your Social Security check by 25%, the 5 best states to retire in, how to reduce your Medicare copays, how to improve longevity, and much, much more. In fact, we're sure you'll instantly save over $1,000 in hidden tax deductions you can take immediately that you didn't even know about. Yes, the baby boomer generation can thrive in retirement, and this guide explains how. Newsmax says it's the best guide for retirees and those preparing for it. This book is available on Amazon and bookstores everywhere, but Newsmax has a remarkable free offer for the Baby Boomer Survival Guide. Simply visit newsmax.com/boomerbook or call 1-800-779-5682 and check out the free offer. Remember, you have nothing to lose and you could profit big time. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's that time again, yay or nay, and I got to tell you, the panel's ready for it. They're already laughing. Vice President Joe Biden says Joe Biden may have said that he will not be seeking the nomination of his party for president, but New York Magazine's Gabriel Sherman, you all remember him from his book on Roger, is still holding out for hope for a different outcome. According to Sherman, Biden's passive-aggressive comments on both Mrs. Clinton and Senator Sanders suggest that Biden is positioning himself as, again, according to Mr. Sherman, the party's savior in waiting. He also points to the 5 most poignant words in Biden's speech. I will not be silent. So, guys, what do you think? Is Biden still looking for a moment to get in, or did no mean no, Carl?
No, man, no. I think he's too old and he's out of the game. No offense, Rick, but he's just been in the game for decades and decades, and he's just tired of it. So
what do you think, Noah?
Gabriel has just the most exciting sources who always say really exciting things that tend not to pan out.
And by the way, when I said Roger, I meant Roger Ailes, who runs Fox News.
The Fox News guy who said he was going to run.
You say no.
He's out. He's not. The ball game's over.
Poor Ed. You're talking about Ed Henry.
Yeah.
Who, and Ed Henry, I got to tell you, I find him to be a very credible reporter. I actually believe
I think that was a sniper.
I think there was a lot of that going on. Cheryl Atkinson did the same thing. A lot of the conservative media were the ones who came out with the prediction a couple of days ago. I don't think that was an accident.
No, I think there were people close to Joe Biden who were saying he wanted to run, and they wanted that speculation.
I think they were feeding it to embarrass those people.
But now they aren't.
Well, not now, but before.
After the fact.
All right, if we can move the teleprompter, I can see what comes next. It's next. Well, no, I don't think so. Okay. Well, Gabriel Sherman may be hoping that the vice president will still get into the race, but many on the other side of the aisle are claiming to be overjoyed with yesterday's announcement.
Joe Biden did the right thing by not running, but I wanted to run against Hillary anyway, so I'm really happy.
Okay, Donald Trump is happy Biden is out of the race. So is Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. Remember him? Governor Jindal wrote on Twitter, Democrats are now left with a socialist or a candidate under FBI investigation. Let's embrace our conservative principles and we will win. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul echoed Mr. Jindal's sentiments, writing, with Joe Biden out of the race, Democrats are left with a choice between socialism and corruption. And former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee wrote, Hillary Clinton will likely be the Democratic nominee. I'm the only GOP candidate who defeated the Clinton machine, and he included a video of how he won his gubernatorial election in Arkansas. Are they right, guys? Would Biden have been a more difficult opponent for the eventual...
for Trump?
Yeah.
Yes, he would have been, but he still would have steamrolled him. But he would have definitely been a more difficult opponent because they're both straight talkers.
What do you think, Noah?
I have to quibble with Rand Paul. It's not a choice between socialism or corruption. It's socialism and corruption.
But who would have been the easier...
We get everything with
Who would have been the easier candidate for the Republicans to take on?
I actually believe it would be Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton is stronger.
I agree. And you?
I agree 100%. It definitely is Clinton. Biden has all the fault. The Republicans are already attacking the lineage of Obama.
Well, that's
she
just
falls.
That's exactly right.
Second
it's such
in command.
A simple campaign ad. Do you really want a third term
of
Obama?
Exactly.
Which is what it would be.
That's why I really don't believe them. Finally tonight, here is former Florida Governor Jeb Bush at a campaign stop in Nevada yesterday answering the question, who is your favorite superhero?
I saw that there's a Supergirl is on TV. I saw it when I was working out this morning. There's an ad promoting Supergirl. She looked pretty hot.
Interesting answer. Do you guys agree with the governor's choice? And if not, who's yours? Quickly.
He's trying to loosen up a little bit. So.
Do you agree? Is Supergirl the one?
Who's
yours?
Can't say. Don't got one.
I have no idea, but don't say somebody's hot and that's your choice. You're the you're running for president.
I'm just going to say Captain America because that's my son's favorite superhero.
Well,
and he's watching.
You guys are totally out of it, and you're wrong. It's the biker mice from Mars. If you don't know them, go look it up. You guys all know the biker mice from Mars, right? At least a Marvel character, somebody that people know, Spider-Man. Yeah. All right, that's all the time we have for tonight. My thanks to the panel, and you know what's coming up next. Steve Malzberg in just a moment. We'll see you tomorrow.